thanks for coming on tonight. We'll get started because we've got some great people switched on already, and a couple more will join us. And yeah, we could just chat and talk nonsense all night about star jumps and different styles of boot camps, but we'll get into some good stuff as we go. Welcome to everybody else watching from home. Thanks for taking the time out to come and listen to Dean speak about, you know, some of his career stuff and what he's up to now, and his philosophies and theories around the athletics course at Sedbergh and in general, sport in general. I think it's fair to say if we put a vote together on the summer courses around sort of like the most inspirational coach of the week award, and you have to nominate, I think you'd be in the top 2 week on week.
There's only 2 coaches though, right? There's only 3.
I didn't just mean the athletics course, I meant the whole in general. The whole in general. And before we get going, Dean, why do you think I've got that opinion of you? What do you bring to the party that you think is really appreciated?
That's a hard question, because I just go down there and do what I do. And asking someone what your opinion is of them is quite, I don't know, how'd you do that without coming across really up your own backside?
Mate, but you have put the BBC Personality of the Year award behind you. If anyone hasn't seen it.
Best newcomer, you know, that's, I think a lot of people got that. And then after that, it all died off and went downhill. I'd like to think it's because of the passion that I bring to the course. Like, there's a lot of coaches out there that can do what I do technically, but there's not a lot of coaches, I think, that are prepared to put the blood, sweat, tears in. And right at the start of the course, I say to the kids, I'll never ask you to do something that I'm not prepared to do myself. And so for the vast majority of those 4 days, and bearing in mind, I'm doing those 4 days, 5 weeks on the bounce, and I progressively get worse throughout the summer holidays. I pretty much do everything with them, demonstrating what they do right, what they do wrong, what they have to do. And I've always said that, and this was coming from me, like, remember, what I've achieved is, you know, is what I've achieved, but I wasn't born being a decathlete. I was born just a normal kid that didn't know how to throw, didn't know how to jump, didn't know how to run properly. And obviously I was given a bit of God-given talent. Yes, I can appreciate that. But I still had to go from the complete unknown and learn how to do it correctly, and learn how to, what to do, what not to do, the drills that make big differences. And so I know what they're going through when they don't pick it up straight away. And right from an early age, for me, I was under the impression that you can tell someone 100 times until you're blue in the face and they still won't get it, but you show them once and they'll see it in their mind's eye, and they'll get it so much quicker. Yeah, mate.
Well, I put some notes down before we started before. I think for me, you're an incredibly positive person with everyone. So not just in the athletics camp, but with everybody. So you always bring that positivity, whether you've even got a bone to pick. So whether there's something that you're seeing that you're not quite sure on, you'll frame it positively. You'll do everything to the best of your ability with positivity. I think you've got high energy. So from minute 1 to minute end, you're always keeping that energy levels high, and you bring everyone with you. And I think your biggest quality to us is that you're very caring. So whether they get it wrong, whether they get it right, it doesn't matter. There's an arm around them, coaches and attendees to really look after them. And I think that's something that we all value. I know Higgy is one of our rugby coaches. He's just put on there that you've got time for everyone as well. So we're delighted, mate, to have you a part of the courses team in the summer, and we're looking forward to this summer.
I love the whole atmosphere. Like, I'm not like that person 24/7. I have my wobbles and I have my moments. You know what I mean? Like, we're not robots. We all have dark times, but I think it's easy to be that type of person, coach / role model in that environment when everyone strives to be better. Yeah. You know, I don't care if you're the best in the group. I don't care if you're worse in the group. I just want you to start or finish a session better than you started. And the vast majority of kids won't get it first time. I know that. I never. And so why should they? And very few people get stuff the very first time. Otherwise, everything that you'd be doing would be easy and it'd be almost pointless to do. And so you have to structure the criticism in a really positive way. And so you try and find a silver lining. You did this really well, but you did this really well. You can improve here. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I know how I would want it directed to me. And so that's how I direct it to the kids. And we have a laugh. You know, do you know what I mean? Like, above and beyond everything, I want them to look forward to the session. You know, I don't want them to think, it's going to be a hard session. Wednesday afternoons is our is our conditioning session, and everybody gets sweaty, everybody hurts, everybody pushes themselves into the barrier. All of the coaches, everybody. We've had the physios joining in because there's been nothing to do for them, So it's a really good communal session, and they find out an awful lot about themselves in that sort of 2 or 3 hour period.
Wednesday afternoon, Dean. Wednesday afternoon, that's a good sign. If the physio is not busy on a Wednesday afternoon,
that's when you always disappear, Duffy. You're always doing something.
I'm going to get stuck into some questions for you in the minute, but just for everyone that's joined us this evening, what we've done really well so far is support the chat between me and the guests by firing some questions into the chat box. So I'll try and manage that at the same time as having a chat with Dean, and we've got some questions that I'll throw his way. We will email you all with a copy of the link at the end of it as well, which you can choose to watch at a later date. So if you need to leave early, you won't miss anything, so don't worry there. And if we don't answer your questions tonight, you can expect an email or a follow-up somehow about me and Dean will catch up and we'll answer them later on this week at some point. But let's get stuck into some of these then, Dean. So Dean, do you want to give everyone an update of what your current involvement in sport is at the moment? What are you up to at the minute?
Well, I suppose the easiest way to put that is I'm a track and field consultant. So I fly all over. I travel all over the place. Freudian slip there. I travel all over the place, basically coaching coaches, doing inset for kids. I don't have a one-to-one relationship with an individual coach. There are an awful lot of coaches out there that are fantastic at doing that and that are prepared to commit to one individual person. And when I retired, selfishly or not, I made a decision very quickly that I didn't want to commit to an individual or a group. What my coach did for me, I wasn't sure I could commit to other people like that. So I sort of try and dip in and out and give people as much of my knowledge as possible in a short space of time. And by doing that, and most of my stuff is directed to grassroots level, so the younger stuff, because there's an awful lot of people out there that are willing to coach elite athletes, and let's be absolutely frank, when you get to a certain level, it's more management than coaching. And I know that I lacked an awful lot of technical information when I was a kid. I had some fantastic PE teachers. Their enthusiasm were amazing, but they were coaches, quite frankly. And one of them was my very best friend now, Alan Taylor. He'll admit it. And I try to use my knowledge and my passion to match their enthusiasm with the technical knowledge that they should have and put those two together. And I think those teachers can see 500-600 people a year and make a massive difference. And so I try to give the teachers and the coaches the knowledge and the development that I needed as an athlete, as a young athlete. Does that make sense? So I try to hit as many people as possible by hitting the sort of the coaches first, and then if they want more, then I'll go in and work with the kids.
Yeah, there's a bit of vulnerability, but it's a nice vulnerability not having someone there all the time as a coach. So I know for me, when I do my coaching with my local rugby team, is that I've got that support network, even though they look for support elsewhere. Well, what you're saying is I can hold fire, and when the time is right for people to reach out or where there's a need, then I can spread that a little bit further. And it's more of a development model that actually doesn't limit you from getting out there and doing some stuff.
No, 100%, and it doesn't have to be track and field either. I mean, I wouldn't say an awful lot of the percentage, but a reasonable percentage of the kids that we get coming on the athletics course at Sedbergh don't aspire to be track and field athletes. They just want to improve their all-round athleticism. Yeah. And the basis of every great sportsman, woman, whatever, is a good all-round athlete. And if you can learn the principles of running, jumping and throwing, which in intents and purposes is what a decathlete was, which is what I am, so I feel like I'm reasonably qualified to teach those fundamentals. If you can come away with those fundamentals and you can learn another skill set, netball, hockey, rugby, then the world's your oyster.
Yeah, we've nailed that. I mean, we've nailed that. We haven't nailed it, but it's amazing now because we will actually have people that want to return in the summer but don't necessarily want to repeat a course. And it's like, well, what's the go-to course? Well, the go-to course in anything, to develop anybody in any sport is, the athletic model, so what is exactly what you just said, the mechanics of running, you're jumping, you're throwing.
Yeah, just being a great all-round athlete. That's it. And do you know what? One of the light bulb moments in my career, sorry to turn it back to me, but I'm really educated in myself. I remember when I can't remember what competition it was, but it was a very young age. It was a national title when I'd won it. And Denise Lewis put the medal around my neck and she said to me, "Well done, young man. You carry on like this and you'll be the greatest all-round athlete on the planet one day." And that was the light bulb moment for me to focus 100% on multi-events. And it was just that ring, like being the best all-round, wasn't the fastest, wasn't the strongest, wasn't the best at this, that, and the other, but could probably do everything. You know, that's the key to being an all-round athlete, I guess. I couldn't play tennis. You know, I couldn't play rugby, but I had the physical ability to do so if I learned that skill set.
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. Well, listen, we'll get stuck into your athletic stuff in a minute. But just give us a little bit of an insight to your story. So I find it really fascinating to find out where people started, what, you know, who supported them, you know, where did it go to, what sort of lit the fire for you?
Well, to be fair, up until when Denise said that, my fire was football, as it was with most kids, certainly back in the 80s. But I mean, track and field was the very last sport that I ever tried. So swimming, table tennis, basketball, played a little bit of rugby, played football at a decent level. But really, the team sports never sat well with me. I played for a very good side, football side. We won district levels and all that stuff. And I remember one year we had 2 cup finals. One we won, and I played atrocious, and everyone was in the changing rooms like celebrating. And because I'd let myself down, my own performance wasn't up to scratch. I genuinely couldn't celebrate. And I'm talking like I'm 12, 13 years old. So I'm not like a mature kid or anything. I'm just a kid. And I still at that age was always focused on the team, but my own individual performance within that team. If someone had to carry 10% of my performance, I let the team down, sort of thing. You know? And then the other one, we lost on penalties, but really we should have lost 5-0 in normal time. And I played out of my skin, and everyone was all somber and like sad that we'd lost. And I was walking around like a dog with 2 tails, thinking I was awesome. And so right from the early age, I kind of knew that I was destined for a single sport in some way, shape and form. And don't get me wrong, like we all get super nervous before a competition, walking out in front of 80,000 people in your lycra, just with no one to depend on other than yourself. But I kind of like the fact that if I win, I win. And if I lose, I answer to myself. You know, there is no letting other people down other than myself.
I love the fact you can be so honest with that mentality, though, mate. But I mean, you know, some people in the team sport, like, it's a strong behaviour. But did you ever at any point miss the support of teammates?
Yeah, well, the camaraderie and the banter, yes, of course. You always look over at the football teams and they're always having a bit of a laugh and stuff, and you're on the track with your Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and that's it, and a stopwatch. But I love the solitude of being that person. And I've never done sport because I wanted to be in a group. I've never done sport because I wanted to be the best. I've done sport because it made me feel good about myself. So I've probably told you this before at Sedbergh, so I apologise for making you go to sleep, but I was never academic when I was at school. So when we was put into groups in maths, science, English, all the other academic classes, I was the last person everybody wanted to be with. Yet people used to like fight tooth and nail to be on my side in PE. Because if you was on my side, we'd win. And it wasn't that I was like amazing at everything. I just picked stuff. I was that annoying kid, picked the golf club up and hit it dead straight down the middle of the fairway 200 yards. You know what I mean? So I had the innate ability to pick physical things up super quick. And the feeling that I got when I was in PE is what I suppose most people got in most other classes when they was good at it. And it simply comes from there. Like I just, even now when I'm, 12 years retired, I feel good about myself when I've finished a decent session. I don't need to walk down the high street and flaunt it. I don't need to tell everybody that I can still lift this in the bench and run this in 100 meters. It just makes me feel good about myself. And so from a young age, it was the personal goal that I was after, as opposed to my team winning or anything like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But when I took up track and field, it was all simply because I sort of feel like I got stiffed in one of the district sports. I was in the high jump and I was in the 200 meters. I was in the triple jump. I won the triple jump. I ended up winning the 200 meters, but I ended up leaving the high jump to run the 200 meters final, which I won. Then I came back to the high jump, but they'd stopped the competition. So they didn't let me finish my competition. So because I felt a little bit aggrieved by this, and I think I was probably 14 years old, I went to a club that week just to jump the high jump, just to see for myself if I would have won the high jump competition. Went to the club, did a couple of events, did really well. And they asked me a couple of weeks later if I could actually join the club and then compete one weekend. So I said yes. I didn't really want to go, to be fair, because I wasn't interested in the competitive side of things. So just quite enjoyed the sort of variety of track and fields. You know, you could go and throw a bit of discus, you could go and high jump, you could go and long jump. Like the variety kept me interested, sort of thing, at school. You know, went to this competition, enjoyed it, did a few more. And later, I think it was later on that year. See, this is a very quick progression, by the way. So I'd been doing lots of different sports for a number of years. And so I think one of the reasons why I picked up track and field really quickly is because I just had that hand-eye coordination sort of thing. You know, the muscle memory came quite quickly to me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Later on that year, I went to a district sports and I entered 5 events. I entered the long jump, high jump, triple jump, javelin, 200. I won the javelin, won the high jump, won the long jump, come second in the triple jump, and then I didn't make it to the 200 final because I was knackered, right? And a guy came up to me and he said, look, next week we've got an octathlon. You've just done 5 events in one day. Can you do 8 events in a weekend? I went, yeah. And I'd never had an Essex vest at this point, right? So I went, yeah, lovely, no worries. Turned up that week. And remember, this is back in the 80s. Was it 80s? 80s, early 90s. Yeah. When you couldn't Google what an octathlon was. And I tell you right now, the lazy kid that I was back then, if I'd have realised the 1,500 metres was the last event, I'd have sacked it off. Remember when you spit on your palms and put it on your head just to make yourself feel clammy and just like cry wolf? Honestly, I'd have done anything in my powers not to have turned up. Anyway, I turned up to this event, didn't have a clue, because if your mum didn't know and your dad didn't know, then you didn't know. Yeah. There was no Google back then, was there? Anyway, so I turned up to this event, got all the way through to the last event, the 1,500 metres, run it like superbly slow, like unbelievably slow. I remember a 50-year-old man who was our team manager run the back straight with me, and he was talking to me because I was going so slow. He was going, Dino, you've got to go now, mate. It's a bit slow. Got to go faster than this. I'm going, yeah, but sir, it's 4 laps. And he went, but this is really slow, like talking me into it. Anyway, I won the event. A couple of weeks later, won the national final and broke the British record. And then the year after, did the same in the decathlon. And the year after was when Denise Lewis put the medal around my neck. The year after that, I went to the World Juniors, went in ranked 11th, come out with a silver medal. And at this point, I'd just done my GCSEs. I say done. I sat them. The results weren't fantastic, shall we say? Yeah. And I remember saying to my parents, so we're sitting in Sydney in McDonald's the day after I've just won a World Junior silver medal, and I've been doing athletics 4 years, I think, by then, you know, at a club for like 3.5 years. And I'm sitting there and I've been in education for 10 years and I'm still stupid. But I've been in track and field for a few years and I'm second best in the world for my age. And my parents went, yeah. And I went, this is what I've got to do. And I remember my old man turning around and saying to me that you got until the year. So this was 1996. He said, you make the 2000 Olympics in Sydney because they wanted another holiday, or you like, that's it. That's your time. And in between 1996 World Juniors, so this is the end of 96, I had 97, 98, and obviously I had to qualify. I got a job as a lifeguard, working 6:45 in the morning till 12. I trained the rest of the day, then I stacked boxes 6 in the evening till 10 o'clock at night. So it weren't like it all came easy to me.
It's glamorous, yeah, the glamorous athlete lifestyle.
Yeah, it's glamorous, all right, but only for about 3 days a year, you know. So my parents did support me as much as they needed to, but as long as I put the effort in. And come 1999, really it was the last chance saloon, qualified for the World Championships in Seville, went to the World Championships in Seville, ranked 11th, and it was a complete, like, mirror image of the World Juniors 3 years before, won a silver medal, qualified for the Olympics in 2000, turned professional, job done. As easy as that. Like, a little bit of hard work. There was a little bit of hard work. Yeah, there might have been a couple of laps in between that of the track and some of this stuff.
Mate, that's incredible, and to happen so quickly. But I do feel like you get your calling at some point. You have to make a decision and commit to something at some point. You obviously got that with playing your sport before it. So, you know, you played all your different sports and got it stuck into everything. And then it was like, well, you know, I've got to make some choices to be successful in life, and this is definitely what I'm going to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a ballsy move to go all in on something that there's a 1 in a million chance is going to be a success. But let's face it, with my education at that point, it was probably the only choice I had. But also, there were two really lucky moments for me. You know, when I got asked to do the octathlon, that is absolutely right place, right time. You know, and then when Denise Lewis put that medal around my neck, from that moment on, when she said that to me, that I said earlier on, I never once, from that moment on, wanted to ever do a single event. Never wasted my time trying to be a 400-meter runner or a high jumper. I just went absolutely guns blazing to be, as best I could, the decathlete, which, you know, whether you know track and field or not, it's sort of a thankless task, really. You don't get the Grand Prix. You get one shot a year, and quite frankly, you're strapped up like a mummy for most of it.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I don't know, because I'm not saying making it sound all that glamorous, I absolutely loved how hard it was.
Yeah.
You know? When we went to an Olympic holding camp, I loved being the first person on the first bus to the training track and the last person onto the last bus on the way home. I loved it.
Yeah, it's amazing though, because the story attached to this, Dean, is like the underlying sort of pillars that got you into a position was like your commitment, your drive. Yeah. People won't see that. So I love.
You can only have that if you're passionate and you love what you do. Like if you do it for any other reason other than for the love of the game, which is one of my favourite movies, Kevin Costner, by the way, well worth watching, ladies and gents. But if you do it for any other reason but for the love of the game, you won't make it.
I just want to ask a quick question, because we've had this conversation from team sport to team sport. So we've talked with hockey, we've talked with rugby, we've talked with netball, and we always say like the benefits of playing multi-sports, different sports at an early age would always stand you in good stead at some point.
Yeah.
Did you find that going into athletics though?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, I didn't run properly. I certainly didn't jump properly, and I didn't throw properly. But because of those sports where I dabbled in certain elements of all of those attributes, I started to pick it up really quick. For me, and going back to what I mentioned earlier, for me, it was the issue of finding good coaching at that young level. So decent school level, county level, it's very difficult to pick up the knowledge within the coaches. Because let's face it, track and field is fundamentally run on volunteers and absolutely brilliant people. So I'll never knock them. But at some point, you need the expertise. You can't just go to a UK athletics sprints course, tick all the T's and dot all the I's, and now you're a sprints coach. At some point, you need to have that experience to understand where those kids are, what they need, what drills work, what drills don't work. And you can't find that in a book. So, you know, this is where at the start, where I suppose my team, my parents were super supportive. I put all the effort in that I needed to. Really, if you had someone that was as knowledgeable as they was enthusiastic, then maybe those gains would have come a little bit easier, a little bit quicker. And again, that's where my passion lies, trying to give the kids the head start that I possibly did. But that might sound like I'm moaning. I'll like the people that helped me all the way up the ladder and supported me all the way down the other side, I will forever be thankful.
Yeah, but I think that's another reason of why we always want to give back on the other side. So, you know, you don't have to come to Sedbergh in the summer. You could quite happily fill your time with other stuff. But the fact is, you're going to connect with so many more.
After a year of lockdown, mate, you try to get rid of me.
Don't commit yourself too hard. Your fee might get slashed. But you just talked about your parents, and we talked briefly about some coaches. Who is it then that inspired you along the way? So your Denise Lewis comment moment, but who were the people that really inspired Dean Macy through that short period at the start and building all the way through it?
No sporting heroes, none.
No, I mean, who inspired you? So was it coaches? Yeah. Was it parents?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I've got no sporting heroes that I looked to that inspired me. It was a simple fact that the way training and competition, being better than I ever thought I would ever be, made me feel. And I suppose, hand on heart, I never did it for anyone else. You know, I love the fact that people supported me. My parents, my brother and sister have never ever moaned about the limelight or whatever that I've ever had. They've always been at every single competition. The old teacher that I spoke about, whose enthusiasm was amazing, paid out of his own pocket for me to go to the English schools final because the school that I was at wouldn't recognise sport as any form of achievement. But yet his coaching skills were lacking. Again, he's one of my best friends, and he's probably someone that his words of wisdom in the way in which I conduct myself have stood the test of time. So he's really sort of ingrained certain aspects into my personality, I suppose. But I never ever did it for anyone else. And I suppose when the times get hard, that was a blessing in disguise, because you know, when someone comes up on your shoulder and your heart's thumping out your chest and your legs feel like they're going to drop off and you can't lift your hands up to wipe your brow, all them people that stand on the sidelines can't help you. It's down to you. You know, the buck stops with you. If you want to beat the person next to you, you got to beat them. No matter how many people scream. And certainly in track and field, when the gun goes, you don't hear a single person. You can hear everyone else's feet touch the ground. You can hear your heart and your breath and your stride pattern. You can hear every single thing you need to, but you can't hear 50,000 people screaming. How's that work?
Yeah. There's a really cool poem I was given. So I don't read poetry, but I was given a poem by Rudyard Kipling, The Man in the Mirror. I don't know if you've ever, it's worth a Google, because I think what you're trying to say is that, you know, the book stops with me. So if it's going to be successful, it's down to me. I can't make excuses. And the person looking back at you in the mirror knows whether you're lying or not. And there's only you that knows that. And I think it's a really sort of strong behavior of accountability.
100%. If you cut corners, if you lie to yourself, if you lie to other people, every single time you look in the mirror, you'll get found out.
Yeah, absolutely. Dean, I made some other notes as well around. You said you had 2 pieces of luck, but we've seen some career highlights here. So you've been to 2 Olympics, won the gold at the Commonwealth Games, World Silver and Bronze, BBC Young Personality of the Year. There'll be many more. What sticks out?
Record holder.
We should dig that out on YouTube or wherever we could find it and start building a campaign for this summer's athletics course. But what sticks out in your mind? What are the top sort of career moments for you that you would sort of like to discuss with us?
Catching my first 7-pound chub was a highlight.
Was Keith Arthur with you?
No, he wasn't, but I phoned him. Look, I mean, I suppose you've got to say that the world champs in 1999, which was, I mean, I knew the shape that I was in. I knew I was going to go and score a score of about 8,500 points, but I didn't for one even second think that it was going to win me a medal, even though, like, 8,500 points in world champs and Olympics regularly wins medals. I never once thought that going there and scoring a score of that magnitude was going to, you know, sort of leapfrog me into being a professional and achieving what I achieved. But and I suppose because of that surprise, that, I mean, the Commonwealth Games as well, because that justified the effort and the time and the heartache and the blood, sweat and tears, because I always felt like I was good enough to win a major championship, to stand on top of the rostrum. But as we all know, just feeling like you're owed it isn't enough. You know, you have to earn your stripes and you have to go out and take it. But the world champs, which transported me into the world of athletics as a professional, because it was such a surprise, and everything that came with it has got to be the defining moment. But there is one moment that I will never forget and almost chokes me up every time I think about it. And it's after the Commonwealth Games, because the long and short of it is that in 2002, when Commonwealth Games came to Manchester, I ruptured my hamstring 3 weeks before and ended up pulling out. And I remember going up and commentating on the Commonwealth Games and commentating on Claston Bernard from Jamaica winning the Commonwealth Games gold medal in the decathlon in a score that was nearly 1,000 points less than I thought that I was going to score. So I was in good shape. And 4 years later, 3 weeks to the day almost before the Commonwealth Games again in Melbourne, I tore my hamstring. And so I very nearly never made it to the start line. Now, I won't go into it because it's a good 30-minute story of how we did it and all that stuff. And I still, even though I tell the story, don't know how it happened. Because when you have an 11-centimetre tear down your left hamstring, 3 weeks to the day before you start a major championships, even the physios and doctors that work with me, there's no answers. You know, it was just meant to be, I guess. Anyway, going into the Commonwealth Games, we all knew that it was a tough ask. And a couple of days beforehand, a guy called Brad McStrabick, who was a former decathlete, but our team manager, came up to me and he said, I nearly swore then, he said, flipping hell, Dean, you'd have to get yourself into some pickles. And I said, Brad, not now, mate. Like, I think I like to think I'm a friendly guy, you know, but we all had a moment when we switched that mean sod switch, you know, and like, don't mess around with me now sort of thing. Yeah. So I was like, not now, Brad. And as he walked off, I grabbed him by the shoulder and I said, if it can be done, I'll do it. Right. And that's all you need to know. If it can be done, I'll do it. And after the Commonwealth Games, I'd done all the drug tests, got me medal. It was a fantastic evening and all that stuff. And there was Bruce Hamilton, Neil Black, God rest his soul, my coach, and Brad McStrabick, all on the very last bus back from the stadium to the village in Melbourne. And not a single word was said. And we got off the bus and we went to the food village and it had shut. I was starving, man. I'd had 2 days of competition. I was that nervous. I didn't eat for 48 hours. So we just sat outside chewing on some like comp bars or whatever, like granola. And Brad was next to me. My coach was the other side and the doctor and the physio were just next to them. And I just nudged Brad in the ribs and I went, told you I'd do it. And no one needed to say anything. You know, it was just that perfect moment, not standing on top of the rostrum, not screaming and shouting and doing the lap of honour. That one moment when the closest people that know what you've been through to get there, just sitting there in the middle of the night, I think it was like 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever, no one around, no one said a word, it was just like bliss, you know, and that's one moment that I'll always remember.
I say this to you every summer, I'm ready to go. I'm going to get my athletics vest on now. I'm going to get the spikes on. I'm going to be up the street. There'd be more than an 11-centimetre tear in my hamstring. Yeah, I love the way you're saying that, and it's the people that know the depths that you go to. It's the emotional side. It's the highs and the lows.
And that's why I do it. And that's why I did it. I didn't do it for money. I didn't do it for medals. I didn't do it. Well, I mean, I did it for medals because I knew that the medals brought the money, and the money was enabled me to live on what I was doing because I loved it. But I did it for that feeling. That feeling alone.
Yeah. Talk to us here. Higgy's asked a question. I'm going to rephrase it slightly. So talk to us about your approach to coaching in terms of personality, and how did that compare to some of the coaches you had growing up? So were they athletics has quite a stigma attached to it around or athletes in general, individual sports, around very sort of controlling, strong behavior, directive kind of well-led coaching.
Yeah, and there is quite a strong structure with regard to what we do at Sedbergh and all the academies and all of the stuff that I do. But I want people to take accountability of their own performance, of the things they do well, of the things they do badly. And I suppose my main focus is to, whether they get it on the day or not, is for them to go away and completely understand in their minds what they did right and what they did wrong and what they have to do in the future to progress, not just overnight. I want them to progress long term, you know, because there are quick fixes. There are little things that you can do to make that performance a tiny bit better on that day. But quite often, those shortcuts always end up leading to bigger problems a little bit further down the line. But more importantly, and I suppose this comes from just my love of sport in general, I want them to look forward to the next session. You know, I want them to enjoy learning, and to do that I try to sort of engage them as one of those, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I get stuck in. Like, I hate sand, but do I tell the kids I hate sand? No. And every time we do triple and long jump sessions, do I come away with it in my pants? Yeah. But you know, we try to install an element of fun into all of the sessions, because like with my roller coaster career, you know, there are always times when people want to give up and always times when people think, oh, is this just worth it? But if you really enjoy and love what you do, you know, you'll always bounce back and you'll always get back on the horse. And when you're learning and when things are new to you, quite often it goes worse. It's to try to almost make them enjoy the session takes away from the fact that the performance isn't always there. Because let's face it, right, you can have a good game and a fun game of rugby, football, hockey, and things like that. But when you're high jumping and you don't clear the bar, it is blatantly obvious to you, the coach, and every single other person there that you did not clear the bar. And so it is a direct fail, all right, and a big red cross. And that is quite hard to get over and to forget about, even when the curve of your run-up has been better than it's ever been before. The form on takeoff, like the lean of your body, everything was perfect. You're technically more superior than you was an hour ago, but if you didn't clear the bar, it's a fail. You know, so we have to try to drum into them that, and it's, you know, it's quite a big fundamental thing for me, is that it ain't about the end result on the day, it's about the end result in 3 or 4 years' time.
Yeah, it's, you know, big element of this is trust. So you trust in the people around you, and I think we talk about it, don't we? So we talk about when we're coaching in the summer, but when we're talking coaching in general, is how we can build these relationships up on and off the track, on and off the pitch. So how can I get the full, complete trust of my athletes that they know I'm in it with the best intentions for them?
Well, do you know what? I find that that's a big thing at Sedbergh anyway, because of the residential side of things. The group comes together. Now, I think in other sports where there's more team element, it's quite easy to do so. But certainly for me as a track and field athlete, even when I was going to a Worlds or an Olympics, we was part of the team, but that team like played no part in my performance. It was certainly for me an individual like experience. You know, I didn't want to share a room with anybody. I didn't want to train with anybody. I went there to do a job, and I knew what I needed to do. And if someone wanted to get up at 10 o'clock in the morning and I needed to get up at 6 and I had to pussyfoot around so I didn't open the curtains and wake them up, I don't need that in my life. Like, just give me a room on my own. I'll do my own thing. But because of that, it's quite easy to be a little bit more of a loner in our sport. But with the residential side of things at Sedbergh, I find that the social side of things in and around the sessions brings the whole group together, and we'll turn up with 25 strangers, 30 strangers, 40 kids that have never seen each other before, and they'll be in tears 4 days later because they don't want to leave their new mates. You know, that is, as much as the gains, the physical and technical gains are brilliant for me, because I feel like my knowledge has made a big difference in their up and coming performances. You know, it brings, I know it sounds a bit weird, and maybe it sounds a bit cheap saying it, so I'm reluctant to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's true. It gives me a bit of a frog in the throat when I see the kids enjoying themselves that much they don't want to go home. You know, that's the big win for me.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get coaches like that. Yeah, just please don't let me get back on the M6. Can I stay for another week? Arabella's asked a question, mate, around, and I'll put another slant to it as well. At what age did you start running? Or what age did you start running competitively, or in your words, probably effectively, properly?
Oh, effectively? I'll let you know when I get there. Well, do you know what the funny thing is, right? So I started running competitively when I was 14. So, like, I would still say when I was running at the districts for the school, even though I didn't get any significant coaching, you know, I still went and did some training sessions and things, because I wouldn't turn up to a competition just to make up the numbers. I've never been that person. I can turn the competitive nature of myself off, and I don't really care if I win or lose in certain things, if it doesn't matter. But if I'm going to make time to go and compete and try to be the best I can be, then I'll always put a bit of effort in beforehand. And even if I didn't have a coach back then, I would still go and just race people over the football pitch and stuff. So, like, I was always competitive from a young age. I love that winning side of things. But more importantly, like I said, I like the feeling it gave me when I did well. What was the second part of it?
No, so when did you start running? Like, and I put a slant on it around, when did you feel like you became more effective as a runner?
Right. Well, this is the other thing, right? So I never started becoming an effective runner and doing it properly until I was, this is where my mind gets, I've got no hope, have I, when I get older. Right, I was in Russia doing my first British international, and I believe the year, don't know what age I was, I believe the year was 1995. All right, so you can work that out. I was born in 77. And that's when I met my long-term coach that see me through my progression into the professional ranks and through the ranks. And the very first thing that he said to me, he wasn't my coach when I went on this international to Russia. I had another coach then who wasn't the British coach and who didn't make the team. And I was so impressed with this guy through the small fundamental changes that he made in the 2 days competition that I thought, right, this is the guy that can see me a little bit further, a few more runs up the ladder. But the first thing he taught me how to do was sprint drills. Now, Duffy, what are the first things I teach the kids on our academy?
Do you want me to be honest? Oh, mate, yeah, have fun, work hard, don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Well, I was looking at drills. It's the first thing. It's the first part.
Go on.
Well, that shot me in the foot, didn't it? But no, so the first fundamental thing that we teach all of the kids are the sprint drills that my coach taught me when I must have been 17 or 18. And just through the fundamentals of learning these drills, I broke 50 seconds for the 400 for the first time. I broke 11 seconds for the 100 for the first time. My approach in the high jump enabled me to jump higher. And I did no extra training sessions whatsoever, just learning the fundamentals of how to mechanically cover more ground more efficiently. All right. That was the first time I'd actually learned that running was a technical. I just thought running was running. Do you know what I mean? It's like walking, but quicker. You know, but it ain't. It's so much more technical. And those sprint drills, only six drills, and it's the first thing that we teach the kids at Sedbergh. And every single day they do them twice a day, because I know full well from my own experience, and bearing in mind, I learned these when I was already an international athlete. All right, and it still took me a couple of weeks to get to grips with them. But at that level, for me, they made a massive difference. And so I know full well that when these kids start to learn them, it's going to make an even bigger difference, because they're not they're not at the level that I was at. So I learned to run effectively quite late on in my career, you know. So, and again, one of the reasons why I'm super passionate about what I'm doing, to try to give everybody the fundamentals that I learned quite late on, but earlier on.
Yeah, mate, that's it. Mate, I was 18, 19. I've never run fast in my life. But then someone taught me how to move, the mechanics of movement. And it was it was incredible, mind-blowing. It's interesting now we're bringing it right back down to the younger ages. So you get them fundamentals in earlier, the more success hopefully you'll have a later date.
Yeah, and do you know what? When I retired, I did quite a lot of sports conditioning work, and obviously, like, I did a little bit of PT in amongst it and all that stuff. But I did a lot of sports conditioning work for many different sports: football, rugby, cage fighting, ice hockey, tennis, and the sprint drills work for every one of them. Every single sport where you either run whilst you're doing that sport or run to condition yourself for that sport, they work, because it makes you more efficient. Yeah,
100%. And be honest with this one. So, how much did nutrition play a part of your athletics days? Was you good at it? Was you good at it?
Years, mate. We're going back 20 years when generally I'd leave Crystal Palace and stop off for a Big Mac and a milkshake within 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well,
on a serious note, I'm quite lucky. I quite like good food. You know, I love a burger. Don't get me wrong. But if you're eating a decent burger and you burn the calories, then as long as weight isn't an issue, then for me for me personally, the biggest issue was keeping weight on. See, my best fighting weight was about 100 kilos. And when we was training 6 days a week, we'd burn so many calories that for me, it was quite hard to stay at 100 kilos / 16 odd stone. And so for me, I just had to consume enough calories, obviously the right ones as well, to keep that weight on. Because if I kept dropping down, my power weight, and even though you got 1,500 meters in the decathlon, remember that is the last event. And there are 9 other speed and power-based events before that. So generally, for training-wise, you'd work towards the speed and power and then just run the 1,500 on heart alone.
On whatever you've got. That's interesting. Because straight away, I was shocked when you said 100 kilos. I was like, you're tall. I'm like, that's a big weight to be throwing around a track and jumping and running.
But that's where my body was at its most comfortable. You know, I run all my fastest 400 meter races at 100 kilos. I jumped all my PBs in the high jump at 100 kilos, and I threw all my PBs in the throws at 100 kilos. So the extra weight, I could easily strip it off. It's not a problem. Keeping weight on was an issue, but I was best at 100 kilos.
Yeah, good quality food. Make some calories available for you to consume if you need to. Henry Ackroyd's asked a question. Henry's an incredible athlete from Sedbergh. What would you say the best athletes focus on, intrinsic or extrinsic motivation? Is there a preference, or is it both?
Yeah, possibly both. But I think if it's not inside, what I'm assuming intrinsic means.
Yeah, internally, intrinsic would be exactly where you come from.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was joshing.
Oh, mate, I worry about
it. If it's not in you, then looking outside for anything is going to be more superficial. You know, it will wash off with the rain. And so, yeah, if you don't lack, if you lack motivation to the point where you need someone to tell you to get up early, if you lack motivation where you need someone to scream and shout at you to get the best out of yourself, then when those people ain't there, what happens? You know, it needs to be something that you genuinely love doing and genuinely are prepared to put the blood, sweat and tears in. Because when you see Roger Federer in the Wimbledon final, when you see David Beckham playing at Wembley, when you see Johnny Wilkinson kicking that drop goal, right? You think that's real sport. It's not. That is the pinnacle. That is the one moment when everybody remembers. The real graft is done when no one else sees it, when they're laying around after a session and they can't physically lift their arms and legs up. There's nothing glamorous about that. Nothing at all. You know, everybody wants to stop when they get to the point of pain, you know, but the great people just manage to keep going, and you keep the eyes on the prize, of course, because that's your target. But 99% of the year isn't like that. And if you can't deal with the hard graft behind the scenes off camera, then yeah, you're probably in the wrong sport. That's what I would say.
Great answer. Mate, I'm just thinking back to one of my favourite times with you at Sedbergh. It was the nutrition question that got me thinking back to it, is when you on the last day you were heading back home on a Thursday and the kids had gone to Green Door at lunchtime.
Yes.
Listen, was it a tenner or 20 quid that you give one of the kids and says, I'm doing the last reports, just get us some bonbons for the car home.
Yeah,
they'll be 20 quid on a sack.
They give me, they instead of bringing me my change, they put 20 quid into blue bonbons, and she gave them the trade pack, which was a bag. I mean, it's like a Santa's sack. And the kid that brought it to me must have been 12 years old, 4 stone wringing wet, and it looked huge on him. It took me over a year to get through them.
Nikki sent me a message earlier on saying, I can't wait to see you on the athletics course this summer. But Nikki and I still laugh about that to this day. Your jaw must have been in agony.
I look like a castle man, like this.
Oh, brilliant. And a really good question actually from Jim Davis is, would you recommend a single coach for a decathlete or a group of specialist coaches?
That's the $1 million question. And I know people that have got to elite level with both. You know, I had one coach that commanded and structured my entire training program. I liked that because I knew exactly one person I had to go to every single time. If we needed external help, shot, disc, jav, then we went as a group or as a collective. So me and Greg. Then we went to get it ourselves, because by helping me, the guy that was helping me helped Greg to understand what we needed to do in the future. So I would say it's a lot easier and a lot more simple if you've just got one person commanding, because in my experience, some of the people, not all of them, but some of the people that have multiple coaches for multiple events, when there is supposed to be one outcome, what happens is the coaches generally don't work in cohesion, and they all try to pull a little bit more for their event as opposed to the other events, and it ends up being a right old mess, and the athlete tends to be the one that suffers. So even if you are going to have multiple coaches, you need one person to structure those multiple coaches that they all feed off of.
Brilliant. Good answer. And then Adam has asked a question around your fishing stuff, actually. And it was more along the lines of, did you fish when you competed, and did it help you relax?
Yeah, it did. Yes, I did. And yes, it did. From 1996 through to 2000, no, I didn't, because purely it was 100% training and trying to stay awake as a lifeguard and stack as many boxes as I possibly could. So those sort of 3-year period, I genuinely didn't have the time. I wanted to try to make the best of the only opportunity that I had. And so I wasn't really like hobby orientated. It was all out athletics. But come 99, when I won that medal, to be fair, the attention that I got after 99 world champs was so overwhelming that it was my wife that got me back into fishing. She said, look, just go fishing for the day. Because I had a seat box in the garage and a few rods and stuff. And I went, I can't be asked. She went, take me fishing. And we went fishing. And ever since then, that's when the bug bit again. And so, yeah, through the whole of my professional career, if I ever ended up with 2 days off, because I was always of the impression that 6 days on, 1 day off, 5 hours a day, lovely jubbly. But that is a recipe. That's an ideal recipe without any niggles or whatever. And you know, that's just not realistic. So on occasions, I had 2 or 3 days off when my body just needed to rest. And on those occasions, I'd pitch the tent up, get the cart rods out, and do a couple, like a few more sessions. On my 1 day off, I'd go fish a match at a local lake and stuff. But yeah, it did help me switch off. And I wasn't, as much as I do believe if you get one shot, then you should give it your all. I don't believe you should do it to the point at which you burn out. And so the way in which I structured my training, instead of doing 2 sessions a day, which, you know, there are arguments for both, I tended to be ready for 9 o'clock. So go over the track as early as you like, as long as you're ready to start training at 9 o'clock. All right. Greg turns up at 10 to 9. We have a hello, how you doing? This, that, the other. Bosh. Work starts at 9. And then I'd finish between 2 and half 2. There was no sort of real switch off time, but once you finish the session, do whatever you need to do. Then once that switch off time had sort of commenced, then the rest of the day was mine. And so quite often I'd just go fishing for the afternoon just to shut off, you know, because otherwise, you know, 10 years as a professional athlete, eat, sleep, sit on the toilet and think about athletics, it just burns you out, mate.
I don't have much sympathy for footballers, but I mean, you can see why they go and play golf a lot. You can see why they're picking up some stuff. And we talk to a lot of rugby players at the moment who are picking up degrees because they've just got so much spare time on that. So it's that mental burnout of rugby, or football, you know, the focus elsewhere, just go and invest some time to turn off. So actually, when you go back to it, you're fresh, ready to go, you're hungry again, and it doesn't get to...
I mean, as much as the physical ability has to be there, like you can think you can run a 45-second 400 meters, but if you're a fat lad down the pub, you ain't going to do it because you can't do it, you know. But the mind is the most powerful thing you've got. You know, if your body can physically beat every other person in the world and you don't, then it's your mind. It's between the ears that's let you down. It ain't your arms, it ain't your legs, it ain't your back. It's your mind. You know, and so switching off mentally after sessions is just as important as going to the physio in my book.
Yeah. But talking about the support stuff around physio, Higgy's asked a question around psychology, and did you have any sort of support with the mental skills attached to the sport or not really? Or was it all literally down to you as a person?
Yeah, they were there on offer. And I think if I really felt like I needed them, then I would have utilised them. I mean, you know, I felt like I needed physio, so I went physio. When I needed a doctor or a surgeon, I went and got cut open, or I went to see a doctor for some painkillers or whatever. But and I suppose there are. Maybe I'm a little bit old school and barbaric in the way that, you know, my problems are my problems, and I, you know, I am a little bit in the way, like, you know, no one cares about my issues more than me, so I'm probably the best one and more qualified person to deal with them. And like I said, when I walk onto that track, I 100% and wholeheartedly take all of the responsibility of my performance on my own shoulders. And there and then, I need to know that whatever happens on that track, I can deal with without asking anybody anything. Like, I'm fully prepared within my own little ecosystem to deal with whatever. So no, I was quite strong-headed. You know, I did things my way. Whether they were the right way or the wrong way, I don't know. And that's one of the reasons why I try to instill a lot of my experience into the kids nowadays. I'm quite passionate about that as well. But I always felt like there was nothing big enough for me to, like, that I couldn't deal with. You know, it could be training, injury, whatever. You know, like I said earlier on, we all have our moments. You're allowed to think dark things. It's fine. You know, you've got to find a way out of them every now and again.
Yeah, but maybe I would class them as skills within themselves. So the resilience element, you know, I can deal with this. It's not too big for me. And when it does, I know who to lean to. But I almost think about the what we lack in society at the minute is problem solvers. So
do you know what, right? This is the thing as well, right? So maybe I come across a little bit blasé in that respect, and I apologise if I did. It wasn't for me. But if you feel like you need it, you should never feel too big to go and ask for help.
Oh,
you know, mentors are a great thing, you know, because you go and ask a mentor if they've ever been in a certain position, and you can utilise that experience. I mean, it's no different to what I'm trying to do physically for those kids, but instead it's just here. You know, it's in between the ears. And like I said, just because it didn't work for me, or it didn't sit comfortably with me, or for whatever reason I didn't do it, doesn't mean it can't work for everyone else.
Yeah, I wouldn't have said you were coming across like that either, mate. But I would have said that these are skills that are vital to succeed. Challenge.
100%.
You need to hurt. I've got some other notes. We're going to run out of time, but like failure, we've not even talked about failure. You can't win every week. You can't go out and perform every week. So you need this pressure and the challenge and the failures and the defeats and the injuries to keep you moving, to keep you hungry, and to make you a more rounded athlete.
Yeah, I think, I mean, maybe someone said it, maybe I picked it up somewhere, but I think one of the reasons people don't succeed is because of the fear of failure more than anything else, you know? And that is just a stepping stone. Like, if everyone wants to get to the top of the ladder, what are you going to do? You're going to jump there. You've got to take every single one of those runs of ladders and think of the game. Snakes and ladders. Two up, one down. Three up, one down.
I'm always on the big. I'm always on the big snake. I'm never on the two down.
Yeah, but it's fun on the way down, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got 3 questions, and then I'll let you go and have your dinner because you'll get in trouble if you're late. But in terms of your decathlon, how did you sort of divvy up your time on each event? Was it equal, or as it was needed?
So I worked on the fundamental physical basis the vast majority of the time. So when it comes to running, if you can run a good 400 metres, then you're generally quite fast and you can make a good fist of a 1,500 metres. So unfortunately, but fortunately for me, because I used to love the challenge, the 400 metre, which is the man killer, took most of my running time up. Obviously, I used to always make sure I was doing circuits, my weights, my biometrics. So I always made sure physically there was nobody on the planet that could beat me because they were just better than me or fitter than me. If they beat me, it was because technically they were more superior or whatever. But generally, we divvied up the time with regard to you work on your weakest one the most. You know, it's all well and good being fantastic at 9 events, but if you're really bad at one, it's going to bite you in the ass.
Yeah, fine, good. And then the other one was off Emily, and she just wanted to know about your and you might have mentioned it, I don't know, but your biggest setback and how did you overcome it?
Biggest well, I suppose every injury. I remember once someone said to me once, they said, I really admire the way you deal with your injuries. You're so positive. And I remember almost biting their head off. And I'm like, hold on, look, I'm never positive about an injury. Like, there's nothing good about an injury. There's nothing good about missing a major championships. And I'm never okay with being out of action, you know. I go into a really bad place when I'm injured, but it's that place that gets me out of it and makes me so determined not to get there again. Does that make sense? Yeah, you know, so I do not accept being injured. And I suppose, you know, unfortunately for me, my body wasn't quite as tough as my mind was. And, you know, I say to the kids all the time, you know, your head is going to give up way before your body. But I definitely was that person where my body gave up before my brain. But I would say probably not being able to compete in Manchester 2002 Commonwealth Games was probably the closest to retirement that I ever got because I was so disappointed in not being able to compete in the injury. However, on the flip side of that coin, always looking at the silver lining, because of that disappointment, how close I came to giving up, 4 years later, when and I almost never made it to Melbourne Commonwealth Games, and then coming out with a gold medal, made that probably 100 times sweeter than it probably ever should have been. And so that's, yeah, there's always something to grasp. There's always something good that come out of it. Like I fell over in the hurdles in the European under-23s, right? Early season in 1999. Does anyone mention that? No, because I came back later on that year and won a World Championship silver medal. And I only went to the World Champs to prove that I was the best European under-23 in the world, in Europe. You know, so there's things are always there for a reason. We'll always be given these challenges and hurdles to overcome. And at that time, it will seem like the end of the world. But something always good comes of it. Always. You just have to stay course, man. Yeah,
get back up and go again. Just keep going. Yeah, mate, last one.
You know what? Let me just say this again. It's okay to feel bad about stuff. Like it ain't weak. You know, just don't give up.
Yeah, mate, it's learning absolutely. And then the last one, and then I'll leave you to go get your dinner. Was just in case. Well, there will be. I know there is people here thinking around athletics this summer. What would people sort of become to expect? What would they expect from an athletics course this summer with us up in Sedbergh, mate?
Blood, sweat, tears, and fun, and that's just.
That's just the coaches.
Look, you will be like. Look, we'll have a laugh. That's the one thing, because it's not prison. You know, you'll be better on day 4 than you was on day 1. 100%. You'll be a better person. You'll be stronger. You'll be much more prepared for the world. And you know, if I've done my job right, the next season you'll be crushing PBs left, right, and centre.
Yeah, mate, listen, it's exciting. As I mentioned to you on the phone today, we're really looking forward to getting people back into Sedbergh and experiencing the whole sporting offer there. It wouldn't be the same without you. We're really, really grateful that you come and support us, not just in the athletics, but in general. So
well, this is the thing though, mate. You say it like I'm doing you a favour. I do it because I love it, man. I do it because it's 2 of my favourite weeks of the year, and I look forward to it every single year. I mean, that journey home is an absolute sod, let me tell you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I am sorry. Well, I think if we asked Peter, he'd definitely put on a helicopter for you.
Really?
You just got to get him in the pub on a Wednesday and sort of negotiate.
I've had everyone in the pub on the Wednesday, and I've never been offered a helicopter.
Guys, thanks for coming on and listening. We're back next week with Karen Gregg from Manchester Thunder. Dean, a pleasure, mate. We'll catch up very, very soon, and I look forward to seeing you in the summer.
Brilliant. Yeah. Take it easy, people.
Enjoy. Have a good night, everyone.